Green Lantern War Journal issue 1, Phillip Kennedy Johnson writing with Montos on the art. So yeah, obviously the backups from Green Lantern kind of led into this, and they were a bit messy because it was sort of like we didn't know if it was the future or whatever. It turned out to be a different universe with a John Stewart, and it was feeding into what the story was going to be. And the last part of that backup last week ended up being the best part of it because it kind of gave context to everything that had been going on. So we were kind of looking forward to War Journal issue 1 and getting a new Green Lantern John Stewart book, and yeah, it's pretty good. I'm quite happy with this.
Man, the Green Lantern books are such in a good place right now because they're kind of everything that I want in Green Lantern. In here, it's got that little bit of, I don't know if it's pathos, because you're getting that emotion with John and his mom, and that stuff really hits home in this issue. And it gets balanced by all the, the stuff that's happening on the space station and all that action. But
for the record, just before we get going further here, is that you can absolutely read this without reading that backup from the Green Lantern book.
For sure.
It gives we had a little bit of context coming in to what type of story it was going to be, but it sets things up well, where it sets up that John's staying with his mom, he's missing life as a Green Lantern, after the opening big space scene, which we'll talk about. We get a few pages where he's stuck in traffic, he's clearly stressed by that, and there's a quick panel of him flying with jets as Green Lantern, and he's clearly longing for that freedom, and then the traffic light turns green, things like that. Yeah,
it reminds me of the last scene of the Hurt Locker when he's kind of paralyzed in the aisle, picking the cereal, because that's not a decision that's life or death like he was used to. And that's almost like John here, right? When he's digging holes, but he's flashing back to, stopping these floodwaters on this alien planet, So it's almost kind of like, not quite that it's PTSD, but it's almost like he has that call for action that he should be doing more with his life.
But he wants to spend time with his mother, who's reaching the end of her days, and that becomes clear as it goes on later with where that stuff goes. But the opening scene is this great scene in space where some entity in a ring, right? It looks kind of like a Star Sapphire ring, but obviously it's from this other universe.
It's the Radiant Dead Queen.
And it does, although never mentioned that in this year though, right?
Well, no, so that I was gonna say the only thing that you would garner from the backups in Green Lantern is the concept of the Radiant Dead.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll obviously get to that name in this book. But I'm just clarifying for anyone who didn't read the backups, but it's just reading this and listening to this review. It's like we get this ring showing up, and there's clearly a voice that comes with it. And this astronaut who's on a spacewalk in the space station, the energy of this arrival puts the space station into turmoil. It starts to malfunction, and they're all screaming and they're saying, "Hey, you have to connect the Earth thing out there, otherwise we're all going to suffocate." But she's too busy being entranced by this floating ring that's coming towards her, and she's reaching out to it. And there's this great moment where the ring's kind of big in the negative space, and the astronaut's really small coming towards her. She's actually inside the loop of the ring. But then you get this close up, and it's like a reflection of the monster lady, in the reflection. So it's really good, horror movie. Something's come from space and possessed this woman and turned her into this monster. She looks like a skeleton that's on purple fire. Next page.
No, you're not. It's almost like he's Phillip Kennedy Johnson said practice from writing an Alien book, too, playing with that concept. You know what?
I mean, we're not mentioned the art yet, but I was thinking during this this scene, I was like, damn, this artist could do an Alien, because the artist is great. I don't know who Montos is. I've heard of Montos, but I loved the art in this book. I thought all this stuff in space looked great. There's a nice eye for detail in the right places.
Oh yeah, and so it balances all that actiony stuff, right, and horror stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The horror stuff is all really visually striking. All that stuff's really good. I think the art's really good, and then it also handles the quiet moments with John afterwards as well, when he's stuck in traffic, or he's fixing the sink or whatever. It all is good. I was actually really impressed by the art. So. Yeah, it sets up that the mum is reminiscing about this old story of John taking a part of a clock, and she keeps saying, "Oh, when is so and so coming? When's your little sister coming home?" And the tone kind of drops when she says that, and John's kind of awkward about it. And then we find out later, obviously there's an action thing in the middle here, but we find out later that, yeah, the little sister, and obviously you might know this from DC history, but John's little sister has been dead for some time, and the mom has clearly got something like dementia or something like that. She repeats that story that she was telling earlier. She clearly she doesn't know that she's already told that story today.
It's so heartbreaking too, and the way that John just deals with it is like, yeah, Mom, you've I remember that story, and you could tell he's just barely holding it together.
Yeah, and he makes a construct of his little sister so that the mom can see her, and it is really sad, and it's like, not only is he feeling, because we got the sense that he was staying with his mum in the backup because maybe she needs some help, because she's getting old and she's sick or whatever. But it never got to this idea that she's got full-blown dementia and that he's having to deal with that. So this longing for the adventure and the idea that to him is easier, like flying with jets and like fighting aliens, that's easier to him than dealing with what his mother's fighting with in the house. I think that's a really interesting
for sure.
To point out.
And it goes into his whole idea too of John the Builder, right? Can
he fix it? Yes, he can.
Can he? Right, but like, this is a problem he can't fix, right? Like, there's nothing that he could do with Green Lantern energy that's going to help his mom.
Yeah,
he just has to be present for her.
The whole story with the dismantling of the clock that she keeps bringing up is there to tell us, no, he's always had this like fascination with breaking down mechanical things and understanding how they work from the inside, but you can't do that with a human. This doesn't work the same.
Right.
So this Green Lantern shows up. That's just, I don't know who this Green Lantern is. It's a random Green Lantern, I think.
It's a random Green Lantern. And you get through the scene, and then I'll give my thoughts, because I have a lot.
Yeah, so basically he's like, hey, we've got readings here of energy of a Green Lantern ring, but you're not meant to have one. You've been fired or whatever. So basically he's like, hey, I'm going to go into that house and arrest everyone because you shouldn't have this energy. And then John whips up a construct and makes it clear that he doesn't need a ring. He doesn't use a ring anymore. He can just make Green Lantern constructs with his body, which is kind of a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
So he punches him back into space and makes it clear that, no, there's no unauthorized ring. I just have a natural connection to the Green Lantern energy for whatever reason. So I don't know if that was set up in another book that I wasn't reading or something, but this was a big deal to me.
Yeah, it always kind of goes with the idea of John Stewart as the Guardian, right? It's like he almost ascends Green Lantern hood and he almost becomes a human Guardian, and he can tie into the green energy much like Ganthet and all of them do. So when this lantern shows up, and it's all part of the the Green Lantern Corps being a part of the United Planets.
Yeah, it's the Green Lantern of the United Planets or something.
And like, for as much as I am tired of the space opera-y type stuff, when Bendis did that by having the the United Planets pop in, and then the Green Lanterns becoming part of that, it added this whole level of bureaucracy that even more right than what we were getting in other Green Lantern books. So I give credit to both Phillip Kennedy Johnson and Jeremy Adams for giving us Green Lanterns outside the bounds, because both Hal has that new ring that we still don't understand. Which
I'm pretty sure, I guess it's just not showing up on their readings because it's like it's being made with a different thing. But I was thinking, hey, if anyone on Earth's got an unauthorized Green Lantern ring, it's Hal Jordan over there in Coast City. You may want to go check that out, buddy.
Right. There's that, and then there's just John doing all of this, but like, they're still being able to be Green Lanterns outside of this United Planets bureaucracy. So it definitely gives it more of that superhero kind of outlaw kind of vibe that I feel like it gives both characters an edge there, that just having them be space cops doing stuff on Earth is kind of lacking. So
I mean, you say that, but honestly, just having them being on Earth's the big thing to me. Like, I was so sick of them just being on all these random different planets. It was constantly just like having this being tailored to Earth, and they can have visitors from other places. Like, they can have Green Lanterns come down and talk to them. That's all fine. You can still have that as the backdrop to the Green Lantern universe, but I think having this like human connection where he's got this sick mother that he's dealing with, and even then the threat that they set up here at the end, which let's say the end, the start and the end. The start obviously introduced the villain and this astronaut, became possessed with whatever this force is. The end of the issue is that this Green Lantern from the same universe that the Ring and the villain came from shows up and searches the wreckage of the space station. And a couple of notable things here before we even get to the plot is that the way his Ring talks to him is a little bit different to the way that the Rings in our universe talk to the Lanterns. Like, it's like this is actually a person who used to be a person and is now a ring, as opposed to...
It reminds me more of what Jess dealt with, right? With the Power Ring from the evil universe.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but not evil, just a little snarky. So he's searching the ship, and so he's Lantern Shepherd. We find out his name, and he's got a very... the Green Power Ranger had that gold shield that he wore over his outfit?
It is.
Yeah, it's just like, imagine that, but that's green over black, and that's what this Green Lantern outfit is for this guy. But he is looking for, because we don't realize this at the start, but what it turns out to be is that the other astronauts in the ship have all been infected and effectively turned into space zombies, right? And this is where... Like, it adds some more context to that backup, and I kind of realized what some of it was getting at now. But effectively, between what he says in the Ring is that, wait a minute, okay, she's here, she's infected these astronauts, the space zombie virus is spreading. The Radiant Dead's the actual name they give them. I'm just saying space zombie because it sounds cooler. And it's like, okay, so he fights them and he deals with them, or he's in the middle of dealing with them, but the Ring reminds him, hey, like... if there's space zombies up here, then part of this station might have fell to Earth. And if this Earth has already started to spread this space zombie virus effectively, then it might be lost. This may not be where the final battle's held. You have to find the one we're here to find. We have to find John Stewart. And we know from the backup the reason why they're looking for John Stewart is because John Stewart's kind of their hero on their universe. So they're looking... And
he is tied to the whole idea of the Radiant Dead being multiversal. Right, is that the Radiant Dead, or the Radiant Queen, is kind of tied to John Stewart as well. She's looking for him too. So whatever.
She's not tied to our John Stewart though. She's looking for our John Stewart because she hates her John Stewart and wants to go after him. I don't even know if it's just a straight up vengeance thing or if it's just whatever it may be. But
whatever it is, but yeah, and so Like you said, you like to call them space zombies because it's more fun, but the idea of Radiant Dead as a name kind of reminds me of Romero calling them the Living Dead and never out and out zombies.
Sure, yeah, that's the nice.
So it gives it a little bit of a panache.
Okay, I can get on board with that. I think this was a good first issue. I think this was it set up the emotional place that John's in. It gave us some connections to him as a human and like the characters around him, and then the thread that it sets up here is super interesting, way more interesting than it ever was in that backup. Like, I think the simple idea that some kind of zombie queen has come from this other universe and is potentially going to infect our entire Earth and is targeting specifically John Stewart, but we also have like, it's almost a little bit Terminator in that instead of coming from the future, they're coming from another universe. And this is at the end of the book, this is the Kyle Reese who's coming back and saying, "Oh, I need to go find John Stewart before she does." I mean, his name's even John, like John Connor. Like,
true. He has to say, "Come with me if you want to live," right?
Oh, maybe he will. Maybe they'll even make that reference. But I do think it's this idea, and maybe this is tied into the fact that John can make his own constructs. He's special in some way. And that's why he's important to stopping her. And maybe why she's like, I'm going to conquer this universe instead. I just have to make sure I take out that pesky John Stewart first.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then the art was great throughout.
Montos is really good. It's moody where it needs to be. So like the horror zombie stuff is, it has its own vibe, like, and then the at-home John Stewart stuff has its own vibe, but they match perfectly.
All the stuff
they mesh together well.
Yeah, all the stuff in space looks really good. That panel where Lantern Shepherd's looking through the ship, and you get the Radiant Dead crawling out of the darkness down the shaft in the bottom half of the page. That is a fantastic page. It's really good horror stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously because we're dealing with all these dark spaces in space and through this ship, the green light really pops as he's looking through.
Yeah, the colorist is earning it in this one, because the purple off of the Radiant Dead, the green off of the lanterns, everything is very vibrant. and like you said, it pops. But yeah, my really kind of the only thing is kind of towards the end where the Radiant Dead start coming out. Some of the stuff of Lantern Shepherd looks a little rough, but I mean that's picking nits at this point. It was a very good first issue. I mean, who would have thought Phillip Kennedy Johnson on Green Lantern would end up being a hit?
I mean, you say that. I think the only reason why there was any doubt is because the backup was a bit messy. But I mean, I think that was just because he was trying to get across like really confusing, complex ideas in the backup. Yeah. This is an issue 1. This like we've come into it with a little bit of context from the backup, which let us maybe understand it a little better. But even if you didn't, I think this issue clearly takes its time and sets up the main things it needs to set up. I don't think anyone will feel lost reading this first issue at all. It's very good. It's great that we have two, and honestly I think we're going to have a fight now between the Lantern books as to which one is better. This might be the better of the two. It's hard to say after one issue, but I mean that's good. It's good that they're going to be, you know, duking it out. There's going to be like a fight between them. You know, when we really like, say, Detective Comics, we would rather Batman was fighting it for, you know, the title of the best Batman book, but the truth is that usually one's just clearly the better one at the time, and the other one's just, you know, okay or whatever. So it's maybe nice that we'll have a bit of a fight here, but the strong focus and direction and tone of this issue, and character and artwork, is all just telling me that this might be the better of the two. But it's hard to say because we've had 3 issues of the other one. We've only had 1 issue of this.
Yeah, I like that they're both different, but they're both tackling, you know, again, the kind of outsider Green Lantern on Earth. But in their own ways, whereas, you know, John here is trying to fix those problems, whereas Hal is still essentially just being Hal and being that hotshot pilot, you know, character. They're both distinct, which I appreciate. But I'm seeing what other art Montos has done, and there's not a lot. So hopefully this is the coming out party for Montos, because it says that
I hope so.
He's worked on a book with Christopher Priest called Entropy. But that's really the only thing that's coming up, and that's all out of Green Lantern.
Yeah, maybe they're just very new, but at the very least, I hope they stick around on this book as the regular artist, because this was very, very good. So, what are you rating Green Lantern War Journal issue 1?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
I gotta make go a little bit higher, say 9. That's really good.